Hey everybody, welcome to our stream preview to Frostwilds 4 and the Survivor's Guide to the Frostwilds that will release next month. And with us today, I've got Daniel, our head writer.
Hey there.
And I'm Lucas, head of operation, also one of the writers at Mammoth Factory. And I'm freaking excited because today we'll go into the Survivor's Guide, which is the setting guide of the Frostwilds. So this will round off everything we've done in the Frostwilds campaign arc over the last 3 months. So this will give you all the information you'll need to run the whole campaign or put your own story into the setting. So I'm super excited to be with Daniel here today, who knows the most about this world, this survivally icy setting. And as a small teaser, before we go into the Frostwilds and pick Daniel's brain, at the end there will be a reveal of, I think, the biggest dragon we've done so far, which is, when you'll see it, like, it's mind-blowing. And this will be free for all of our 12-month subscribers. So this will be our new highest loyalty reward. And our head sculptor, David, like, my God, he did an amazing job. So that will be there at the end. But before we do that, I'd say, Daniel, kick us off.
As you wish. It is said, and many believe it to be true, that when winter came to stay, it came first as a storm, a roaring and a thundering that unfurled across the land and darkened every finger of sky, until even the slightest glow of moon or star was gone from the world. The great storm rumbled and bellowed for many years, lashing the land with lightning and filling the seas with great mountains of hail, driving the peoples of the old world deep into the earth. Welcome to the dying world, a realm of bitter, endless cold, where only the strong and cunning survive.
Yes, my God, I love it. It's like this, you get this, like, this bleak feeling, but still this mystery that is like, yeah, what happened to this world, which is this arc, right? Where you have this star that brings everything together and this hope into this bleak world. Before we, like, when we go like a bit more into what's in the setting guide, just as the big overview, what is the, like, the exciting things that people can expect? Like, what makes this different from just an adventure?
Right, yeah, so this is the setting guide and a bit of a source book for running adventures generally in the setting, right? So this book will give you all the resources that you'll need to tie together the last few adventures we made, but it will also give you resources like general lore regarding the world, survival mechanics, races, a bunch of magic items, that sort of stuff. Things that allow you to really flesh out the dying world, the Frostwilds, right, and kind of make it your own a little bit.
So you don't just have the feeling you're just following that one adventure, but there's this whole world to be
Absolutely.
discovered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then why don't we just start off, because that also ties in with a lot of the amazing miniatures that we've done for this month, is some of the creatures you can discover and either, like, fight, track down, or maybe just run away in the Frostwilds that people can use to flesh out this world.
Yeah, let's go for it then. So, what do you think we should start off with?
I just, also because, like, the sculpting job, and also Micah Painter, I think what he did with, like, our, like, winged Sharoloths, like, that's amazing. And also I know this is your most unique model, right? So I do not know too much lore about it. So maybe there.
Yeah. So yeah, this was sculpted actually by Gabriel, who's one great sculptor, right? And he gave it this like amazing sort of body language, right? That really tells you a little bit about what it is. So this thing is meant to be one of the kind of apex predators of this world, right? It's a it's one of a class of being that exists in this setting that is meant to tie into sort of the central feel of being in another world and the central mystery, right? These creatures that are called like many-eyed beasts or four-eyed beasts. These creatures that look a lot like sort of normalish animals or normalish monsters, but they all have a few little features that set them apart. Like they all have 4 eyes or a few more. They're all really hard to kill. They regenerate. They have multiple hearts usually, so you have to hit really hard and figure out exactly where you're striking.
Nice.
And the Sharaloth, the idea is it's like this incredible aerial predator that just swoops down. Like you see its shadow, and then it immediately just dives down, grabs you up, and then it gets you with this paralyzing bite. Right. So it
Just,
like
just very quick,
yeah,
just visually, right? It also looks a bit like a dragon, but the way you describe
yeah.
it, it feels more like a bird of prey almost, right?
Yeah, I'd say in a way it's kind of like a frost wyvern, right?
Mm.
It's a slightly dinosaurish, slightly birdish. It's not an intelligent creature, but it's a very cunning predator that can just kind of that will often go for things much bigger than itself, right? Because it relies on this kind of paralyzing bite to just, you know, send things into sleepy time, right? Um, yeah. And this thing is one of the kind of like boogeymen of the Frostwilds, right? It's
Well,
one
and
of the things that
there are many boogeymens there, right? Um,
yes, there are. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
because one of them, and just I might have a thing for big insect monsters, right? And
I
that's
think a
also a
few people
bit
do.
of a D&D classic that we did like our
Mm,
own spin on, which is the rhyme worm. And I
indeed.
don't think I want to encounter that thing in the wild.
Are you sure? It looks super friendly to me. Look at it. Look at those big eyes. That's the
Are those common in the Frostwilds?
the idea is no, but these are things that tend to. We actually decided to put a little different spin on them. Right? They're
Mhm.
still the same nuclear centipedes that everybody knows and love from the Monster Manual, but we decided to make them a little more aquatic as well. So they have a swim speed. They tend to burrow like under coastal regions, and a lot of the like clans that like live near the kind of frozen shores of this world, they're the ones that sort of have bad experiences with these things, right? Um,
Mhm. Yeah. And right, also for that one, like the renders look amazing, but I love just the coloration with like you see the acid spewing out. Like
yeah,
Mike
that's
did an amazing job, and
it's an amazing piece. Yeah,
I'm also super excited to see, like, we've also in the Discord got some amazing painters. I'm sure they will have a blast with this one.
absolutely. This is, I mean, it's one of my favorites actually from this set. It just kind of it captures that classic D&D feel.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, and to like round out this like monster theme, right? We also got a bit more still deadly but less imposing monsters,
yeah,
which are both the Dreki and the Frostwalkers.
yeah. So the Dreki are kind of our take on Yeti-ish creatures, right? Um, they're these like kind of semi-intelligent beings that sort of roam around the frozen wilds. They hate everyone else. um, they absolutely despise all the elder creatures that used to run the show for some reason that nobody remembers anymore. So if you're playing an elf or a dwarf or something, they will always go for you, right?
They have a
Um,
grudge.
they have a grudge. They don't even remember why they have the grudge, but they still have it. Um, so then the Frostwalkers are, yeah. I mean, I actually really like the Frostwalker Mini. It's a great design,
Yeah.
and these things are meant to be. So one of the main story points in this world is there are these lots of artifacts left over by this ancient culture that people just call the Star People now, right? Because their writing looks a little like constellations,
Mhm.
and there are these like stones, these sort of magical, uh, often kind of space warping stones that they've left around, and sometimes they defend themselves by gathering ice around them and turning into these big, sort of like monstrous elemental-like creatures, right? Um,
Yeah. Related questions like A, you said like they're like these magical stones. Can you loot them?
yes.
And B, can you have them as pets?
I think you could definitely have them as something like a pet. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is actually a whole equipment section at one point that goes into some of these smaller stones and how they can be used. And one of the things that some of them can do is form one of these minor frostwalkers, right, as a
Oh,
little servant.
yes. Yeah, because I think if I would encounter one of those, I wouldn't be able to fight it. I would be like,
I mean, be aware they are around. They don't look it, but they are actually around the size of a person, maybe a little bigger.
well, it
um,
would be my stone person to befriend.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Ooh.
can you ride them? Are they mountable as well?
Ooh, are they mountable? They are not at the moment, but that's a pretty good idea. And this whole kind of thing is going to be expanded on in future. So maybe that's the answer becomes yes, because I actually quite like that.
Nice. Or you ask your DM and they'll find a way, right?
I mean, yeah, like of course.
With the Dreki, you mentioned like the grudge against dwarves and elves. I know that
Yep.
one of the features of the setting is that you've got these multiple human clans that are very, very different as well, and we'll touch upon that as well shortly
Mhm.
with one of like the mechanics of different subclasses. But there are also elves in this world, right? How do
Yeah.
those work?
Yeah. So the assumption in this campaign world is there are relatively normal elves around. There is also this kind of strand that has kind of broken off. That are the Nisei, right?
Hmm.
These like kind of very pale blue tinted elves that have adapted perfectly to the cold, right? Um, these are they're very like these are in a way the kind of real uh, the most suited inhabitants of this world, right? Where humans tend to like hide in caves, stay close to hot springs and places that are still warm. These creatures don't care. They wander the plains. They kind of they hunt. They have this this they had this sort of long-standing bitterness against the kind of normal, I guess, elves, right? And that one of the reasons there aren't many of either left is they have been fighting each other for a long time. Um, so the Nisei are also a player race, right? So you can
Oh,
play one of
cool.
these. They have a bunch of different little tricks. They one of their main things is because they made a bargain with like a demon of winter, basically, to become the way they are kind of cut off from life in a way, right? So they can only reproduce by stealing people and then sacrificing them, and that kind of creates a new like elf, right?
Oh.
It allows them to drink in their life force and bring life to one of their own, right?
Mhm.
And the the elf that is created kind of remembers a little bit and of that, right? If they hear the name of the person that was
Ah.
sacrificed, they like freeze up in fear, right?
I can instantly see already like the player character potential there, right? If you
Yes, yeah,
have this memory but you don't know who they are and you want to trace back like who you
exactly, right?
used to be. That sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
uh, yeah,
Yeah, like right, we've established this world, right, with these big monsters, this ancient, almost forgotten past, and one big thing which the setting guide also is there to tie together the three previous adventures, and one of them, if I understand correctly, this is what Dav, um, our director, like when he showed me that model for the first time, I was like, oh, please, yes, which is the Drinker
yeah.
of Stars. I
Hmm.
like the design is amazing. And can you tell me about like a how it came that you came to that design as a team, and then also the sculptors, and then secondly just the story behind that monstrosity?
Yeah, so this design got kind of brought to life by one of our sculptors, Kat, who is basically incredible. She's kind of given
She
this
is.
like she's given this like real presence, right, that you can really feel. And yeah, so the Drinker of Stars is the main bad guy of
Mm,
the campaign. Um, this thing is winter incarnate, right? This thing is a creature from beyond that it all it wants is for all the lights to go out, right?
mm.
It kind of symbolizes the hunger and starvation and wasting and endless cold of winter, right? The slow weakening of everything.
It's
Um,
like entropy.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And in fact, in many ways, it's a pretty simple villain, right?
Mhm.
It has a lot of servants that have their own, much more kind of human wants and needs and ideas about what's going on. But while this thing is very smart and very old, what it wants is simple. It wants the world to die, um, right? And it wants to do that to other worlds. It wants to drink all the stars. It wants to make all the lights go out, right? So we decided to make this thing look kind of dragony, right? Like kind of like this um, wasting, like heavily kind of skeletal dragon creature that also has this kind of winter spirit look to it, right? It has the
Yeah.
antlers, it has this sort of ragged feel. The kind of color scheme we went with has this very night sort of feeling to it, right? There are little twinkling stars in its wings. Um, this thing is like it's here to bring the endless night, right? And that kind of is supposed to come across in the way it looks and feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is an amazing job. Also, like when like better concept artists like drew that up. I love like how the skull also looks like this amalgamation of like different wild
Different
creatures
animals.
that come
Yeah,
together.
it comes across really well, actually. That's something I really enjoy about the design. Yeah.
And of course, then we decided to make it into a dice tower as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because if you need those like deadly life or death throws, you
Yeah. Well,
should
yeah. Absolutely.
you should roll it in a skull of an ancient beast.
Seems to make sense. Yeah.
Um, I think as like the last thing you hinted at it, like that there are these different races, these mechanics.
Hmm.
Um, maybe we can just there's so many to go over. Maybe we can just focus on one or two aspects. And
Sure.
for one thing, you have this one amazing human character, right? Um,
Uh huh.
and I know you have these different human gods and like being blessed by them. How does that work in this world, and how can a player use that?
Yeah, so well, I mean, firstly, the sole human character of this like release actually is kind of like uh, the idea is there are some people who go around and sort of learn all the knowledge from these old kind of monoliths that are strewn around, right? These people who they call them monolith sages, and this is one of them, right? This sort of
Hmm.
traveling sage, right? Um, as for the various human stuff and the races or player options, I guess, that are introduced here, the idea generally is that this world is a lot of the text actually in the book is sort of told from the human perspective, right?
Hmm.
Um, part of the enjoyment of the world is that you will be playing characters often that don't really know what happened a long time ago, right? And are kind of very low tech, uh, don't have the best understanding of the world, probably live in very superstitious societies, and as a result, it works a little better when most of the group are human,
Hmm.
but that can be a bit boring, right? So the idea is these little human kind of archetypes we've created, right, are designed to sort of give you flavorful options for playing humans that fall into certain kind of narrative archetypes, uh, and give you a bit more mechanical variation, right? So, and they're narratively they're explained as like as blessings from the gods, right? So the gods here are distant, sort of not very well known. There are no churches. The gods exist as explanatory powers, right? They're there to explain things like where do people come from? Why is there lightning? That sort of stuff. There are no real religions around them.
Yeah, I love this idea to be like, yeah, I want to play a human, but I have now all these different subclasses that have their own like abilities, stat blocks, so it still feels like you're a human, I'm a human, but it still has this distinct feeling.
Exactly, right. So yeah, and they're designed to sort of play into a lot of the like feelings people often want to get from a player character, right? So if you choose to be somebody, blessed by the father bear, right? You're kind of your fellow clanmates believe that you are blessed by this kind of god of strength and endurance and battle, right? And they probably believe it because you're really big and strong and tough, right? And that's what that subrace is.
Mm.
It's kind of it has more hit points. It's can push people around. Um, it can carry more, that sort of stuff. All the things you really think of when you think of the big guy in a group, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a bunch of others that are more like a little more magical or a little more huntery, right?
Yeah, I think that would be just an amazing toolkit, even if you're in a different campaign and just
Yeah,
somebody comes and says, I want to play human, but I want it to have a bit of character, a bit of flavor. You can just pick one
absolutely.
of these subclasses. And as the last thing for the setting guide, you briefly mentioned also like a survival mechanic. Like maybe
Mhm.
without going too deep into that, what is that? What can people expect there?
Well, one of the main ones that we have done is we introduced this alternative to exhaustion that is called willpower, right? And it takes its place, but it also kind of doesn't just represent physical exhaustion. It represents sort of mental strength. It
Mhm.
represents morale. It represents the will to go on. And the idea is it's on a sort of scale that can go up and down, right? So it's not just you have a point of this that is. That gives you minuses. You can also gather more of it, right, to
Oh,
spend to give you like a constant buff, right? um, it resets when you rest, and the idea is you kind of want to um, you kind of want to spend it when you need it, um, but you don't want to go too far, right? Because it has kind of exponentially worse effects as you start to really spend your like mental energy, right?
so you have these when everybody's well rested, you do cool things, everything goes your way. You have these
Yep.
bonuses and boons you can use, but then if you're out too long, things get too gruel, you don't find food and shelter, then you have to be careful as your minuses stack up.
Yeah, it starts to stack up. It starts to get. It also starts to get like less effective, right? Like one of the things we wanted to do is make it so that it really feels like you are like really spending your kind of your will, your energy when you use this. So like the minuses apply to the rolls that you can get to add on to things from this, right? So generally speaking, you get like little d6s you can add to your rolls from this. But as you go into the negative, those d6s get capped, right?
Mhm.
So the minus you get to all your rolls applies to that as well, right? So there gets to a point there becomes a point where you can only use it in dire situations,
Yeah,
right?
that is cool. Oh, yeah, I think that sounds like it can be really cool and have this extra layer of tension.
Mm.
Um, I think this is a good place to wrap it up as hopefully everybody can see there's so much in there, right? There's not just all the amazing monsters, there are all the races, the gods, the items, all the survival mechanics, new locations. This is just so packed, and I'm just excited to have people get that into their hands and play in the Frostwilds. As the very last thing as promised, we've especially David, our head sculptor, has created this huge dragon. And maybe Daniel, can you just give like a 1 or 2 sentence teaser summary of our new 12-month loyalty reward dragon.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and yeah, this one is, by the way, the biggest boy, I think. It is ridiculously gigantic. So this is Ashmedai, right? The pale worm, the ashen dragon. This kind of ancient, sort of slightly demonic dragon who has all this kind of arcane wisdom and ancient knowledge, right? This sort of tutor to mankind who taught early humans a lot of magic, but demands a really steep price. And it's kind of known as like the doom of mages, right? Because a lot of people have tried to double cross him, and it never works.
And if you throw that thing onto your gaming table, people know shit is getting real.
Yeah.
Oh, this is amazing. I think that is a place to wrap up. The 12-month model will be with people soon. So everybody who is with us already for 12 months, expect that to be in your library in the near future. And see you next month. Bye, everybody.
See ya, people.